is the most important visitor this weekend?
You are Locked On Auburn, your daily podcast on the Auburn Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Auburn, your daily Auburn Tigers podcast. I'm your host, Zac Blackerby. Thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. It's Recruiting Thursday. We're joined by Locked On Recruiting Insider Brian Smith. And of course, our recruiting coverage here is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your business. That's why LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions apply. Brian, when you look at the loaded list of guys from the 2025 and 2026 class that will be on campus this weekend for Big Cat Weekend, it's loaded. There's a lot of them, so I'm going to ask you a tough question. Who is the most important visitor this weekend for the Auburn Tigers?
A lot of ways you could approach that one, Zach. I would say Jared Smith because he's going to go to see Auburn, but I heard he's also going to go see Ole Miss. I don't know the order, which one's first. He's going to make a decision reportedly on the 3rd of August. You would like to get the last visit, but if you don't, at least you want to be the last weekend or so, get some say in it. That's a kid you don't want to miss. You know, a defensive lineman that's a big kid that can play edge. That's an important recruit for the Tigers, and I'm curious to see where he goes.
And I think you can make the case he's more important to Auburn, Jared Smith, the edge player from Thompson, because he's from
the political aspect of it, 100%.
Yeah. And, you know, his teammate, Anquan Fagans, who's also towards the top of this conversation, also from Thompson, obviously. It's like if you could somehow get two Thompson standout defensive players within the span of a few days, it's like, wow, what a huge win, not only for this class, but possibly for setting up a pipeline for the future for the Tigers.
This is the area that every school would like to break into, and that's Birmingham. Do we really think with Nick there that this would happen?
No.
I do not either. Birmingham is as good a big city as there is in the country at producing talent per capita.
Yeah.
It means something to that city. I've been there several times. Coach L, it's seen the playoffs. So it just matters. They come out for practice. Like people are around the practices. It matters. Mm-hmm. So you need kids like that in your program. And if you get them, they're not going to Bama. Let's just cut to the chase here.
Sure. Yeah.
And they're not going to LSU. They're not going to Georgia.
Right.
So that's the goal. You want to get better. And you also want to cut the other team's talent line off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Jared Smith, obviously an edge guy. And with his size, I mean, 6'6", 235, in another year or so, like he may have enough size to play defensive end in some situations too, which kind of gives you some versatility, especially with Auburn being in it for so many edge guys. You may want to get a few guys that can play both, but Jared Smith is that guy. So it sounds like Auburn has been kind of trending for him for a long time. But I mean, you just mentioned Ole Miss. So is this kind of a situation where like Auburn's still the favorite in your mind? They've got to hold off other schools. Where are you with this?
Jared, I actually had a conversation with somebody about this a couple of days ago. Jared is a kid that's really hard to read. South Carolina, for the longest time, was up there. Like, they're not very good. What are you doing? What are you doing? But he just told me like they had a great relationship with him. So the way he looks at it and the way fans do probably is not the same.
Yeah.
So he beats to his own drummer. I'm not going to be shocked at any hat that he pulls out underneath the table.
Sure.
But at the same time, it's going to be South Carolina, Auburn, or Ole Miss, barring something I don't know. Georgia would probably take him, but they're in line to have one of the greatest D-line classes again. So they're waiting on a couple of guys. I don't know where they're at, but I'm always leery of Georgia too.
Yeah. Where are you with Naeem Offord? I've done several radio interviews this week, and that's the guy folks tend to ask me about first. Daryl Dappridge was on the show with me yesterday. That was his guy he's most excited about seeing, kind of what comes out from this weekend about with Naeem Offord. To me, it's like, yes, he's outstanding. He's great. He's, once again, you mentioned Birmingham, but committed to Ohio State, but everybody in the country wants him. I just don't know if I buy it, Brian. Are you buying it? Are you buying Auburn's standing and having a legit shot with Offord?
That's what I've been told by those around Auburn. And I know he's supposed to come down, whether he ends up this weekend or not. He's going he'll be around Auburn's campus multiple times between now and signing day.
Sure.
Let's go with the bulk of it. He's not going to do that for funsies. He can go wherever he wants.
That's true.
He's arguably the best defensive recruit in the country, regardless of position. You could make that argument.
Sure.
So Ohio State, Bama, Auburn, Texas, any school he wants to call, he can do it. I think that Auburn is the number 2, and it just depends on if he wants to go all the way up to Ohio State. It's going to be a comfort decision more than anything else. Auburn's all over him.
Yeah.
So I'll go see him probably in a few weeks at a Parker practice, but like you're just talking about a difference maker at that corner. He's a great running back. I've seen him break long runs there. Just a tremendous athlete. You got to recruit him. If he comes this weekend, though, here's a little added thing. Like, it's a cultural event. That's what everybody tries to do with these events. It's important because you get one-on-one time, not only with like you, but the entire staff, other recruits. Would I fit in here? That's what these kids are trying to figure out.
Yeah, sure.
I think that's an important part of it. Auburn has more cultural fits to Birmingham than Ohio State does, obviously. So they can make some ground up. This is an important time to get him on campus.
Yeah, his recruitment's interesting because he committed to Ohio State, and that may have happened a little bit earlier than some people that I've talked to thought it would. And then Alabama hasn't backed off. Auburn obviously hasn't backed off. Oregon apparently has really turned on everything in regards to trying to get him because they lost out on another top corner last week.
DJ Pickett.
Yeah, Pickett, right. And so now it seems like they're all in on Offord. He's highly coveted. There's no question about it. But let's go back to what Hugh Freeze told a few recruiting folks a few weeks ago at a camp that he was at. Is put this in your story. Hugh Freeze isn't losing this kid. And it's just, I mean, Hugh Freeze is pretty aware, especially in the recruiting game. Like, he's not going to say that if he doesn't think he's got a legit shot, right?
I mean, I don't know how much quoting he's doing. You're not allowed to talk about specific guys, but like, if there's a conversation off the record about like, he knows how important that kid is. He's a day one come in and play corner in the SEC or anywhere, Oregon, Texas, Notre Dame, Florida State, doesn't matter. You can't lose that kid if he's not like just a traditional Birmingham kid that just goes to Bama.
Yeah.
If there's an elite kid like that, you got to get him. So they're recruiting him probably as harder than any player on the board, regardless of position. It's fascinating. So Auburn's, I'll tell you what, it's kind of sneaky, but Zach, you're better at this than me. When was the last time Auburn didn't have a corner on their roster that was a future NFL player? At least one. Like, they always have an NFL corner.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's been, 15 years?
It's
been more than 10. Yeah. I mean, all the way back to, Carlton Davis is kind of the one who started this trend, and that was.
It's right around the time Cam was there, I would imagine. I mean,
it was a little after that, but yeah, because Carlton Davis came with Muschamp when Muschamp was hired as the DC. So I mean, it's been a minute.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's not hard to sell it. You're local,
but the issue though is like Alabama can make that same pitch, LSU can make that same pitch, Georgia can make that same pitch,
true.
Ohio State can make that same pitch. Not sure if Oregon can. I'm trying to think. I don't think they can for as long, but still, like a lot of schools that Auburn's competing with consistently puts corners into the league.
That's why the culture thing, Big Cat Weekend, matters so much.
Yeah.
He's going to be good wherever he goes. He's one of those kids my dead grandmother could coach him at this point. It's probably not going to matter.
Yeah.
He's so technically sound and so athletically gifted.
Right.
Barring injury, he's probably going to get drafted.
You can make an argument that this weekend is equally as important for the 2026 class, Brian.
100%.
Let's discuss that in just a moment, as well as who could pop this weekend right here on Locked On Auburn. Today's show is brought to you by our friends at Game Time. The Game Time app is the best way and place to buy tickets for anything, whether it's for a game, a concert, a comedy event, the theater, whatever it might be. Game Time has you covered. They've got flash deals. You can save even more with exclusive in-app deals on select seats ahead of the game or event. And they've got all-in pricing. You can toggle this feature to show the total upfront with no surprise fees. Look, I've bought tickets other places, and it's like, great, this ticket's $50. And then you get the checkout, it's like $120 a pop. It's like, where did all this come from? With Game Time, you get all that upfront, which I think is super, super honest and cool. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app. Use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Once again, use code LOCKEDONCollege. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. Brian, when you look at the 2026 class that's coming in, and this is really the recruiting class that I think Auburn fans are looking at and saying, if this isn't a top 5 class, I'd be a little surprised at this point with just all of the folks that they seem to be in on it with and the class that they've already started to put together. But I'm just going to list some of the guys that are reportedly coming this weekend. Anthony Jones, who's a top player in the state, another edge defender. Tyler Atkinson, who's the top player in Georgia. He's a linebacker. Zelus Hicks, who's a top 5 player, defensive back from Carrollton, Georgia. Xavier McDonald, a very talented wide receiver from Mississippi. Shadarius Tootle, a Mobile kid who's kind of on pop watch, very talented linebacker. You and I've talked about him a ton. I mean, Vodney Cleveland, a guy who is so big at his size and can move so well, the defensive lineman from Prattville. All of these guys that are reportedly coming, I think it's the top 8 players in the state will all be here this weekend, according to On3. Brian.
That's impressive.
It's insane.
Because, I've followed Auburn recruiting in some capacity since the early 90s. I don't know if they've ever had that before. It depends on which scale you go by.
Sure. I mean, it's a big deal. Yeah.
But this is a social movement. Auburn is doing a great job. And they asked you about this at media days. You were probably sitting right there when it happened. How important is recruiting in state? He talked about it multiple times. He knows they have to do a good job with the local kids. He wants to recruit Alabama, Georgia, Tennessee, Florida, Mississippi. Like, that's your base. You get a quarterback wherever you get a quarterback, whatever. But
yeah,
these are the main places. And we need to make more of a home, especially you talked about Mobile and stuff like that. Anthony Jones, by the way, St. Paul's kid from Mobile.
Right.
They're getting all of them on campus multiple times. It's just so important.
And they seem to be getting them all on campus at the same time together. Which, when you're trying to build something in this like self-belief and something special, we're building something cool here. I think that over the course of, several times over the course of a year or 2 years in their case, just because they got so early on them, that's important. That's a big deal.
Yeah. I don't know what it is, but I used to think it was a little foolish, but people used to tell me bonding with recruiting classes is important. I'm starting to buy into that more because especially if they commit early, if you get a couple of really good players that people trust and like, especially if it's a quarterback, that's always nice.
Sure.
Other kids will come and join. Like if they got Anthony Jones to commit or something by October, it would change the rest because he's number 1 player in the state of Alabama. That's important. Shadarius Tootle and all these other guys are all like the top 5-8 kids. If you get these kids on campus over and over again, they're going to have the conversation. Hey, what if we all win here? What would that be like? That's just the way it works. You got to have them there, though. So that's all the legwork from the recruiting staff, you freeze, and everybody in the office in some way, shape, or form down at the secretary. It matters. Yeah. And they're getting them, so they're putting in the work, man.
Yep. All right, so as far as guys who were expecting to commit this weekend, and of course, this is a year after we saw Auburn have a successful Big Cat weekend, obviously flipping Perry Thompson, and then Malcolm Simmons committed, I think, the day prior to that, the start of Big Cat. So, I mean, you're looking at it now. You've got Anquan Fagans, who has a date set on Monday to announce. And then you mentioned Jared Smith announcing, was it August 3rd, right? Tom Brady's birthday. Happy early birthday to the GOAT. But who else in your mind is on pop watch? Like, wow, it would be awesome if Auburn could pull off either a flip or a commitment from somebody this weekend.
Blake Woodby, the DB out of St. Francis in Maryland.
Makes sense.
Bryce Deese, his teammates committed to the Auburn Tigers. He's an outside linebacker edge guy. I also think Shadarius Tootle, the linebacker out of Cottage Hill Christian School in Mobile. That's a unique kid, 26 kid. He could pop anytime. And there's probably a couple others that there's going to be somebody that we don't expect. That's just how recruiting works. But those are the ones off the top of my head. And then Jared's on the 3rd of August. You can kind of count him as an extension. He's very possible as well.
Yeah. I mean, there's some chatter around Derek Smith flipping from Bama to Auburn. Like, that would be obviously.
That would be huge. That kid is huge. So good. He's so good.
Yeah. And I mean, he's listed as an athlete everywhere, but you think.
I don't care where he wants to play.
You just get him on the team. Let
I
him play receiver or safety, whatever.
Receiver, safety. Yeah. Yes, and yes.
Okay, you just get him here. You'll worry about what he's doing later. Yeah, I mean, that's what Georgia does. They do such a great job with everything there. So, as far as like emphasis on receiver, and some of this may be impacted by the quarterback conversation we're going to have in a second, but Caleb Cunningham said about 20 minutes before you and I sat down to record this that he's not going to Big Cat Weekend this weekend. So if you're Auburn, do you look at other receivers now and say, hey, we've got to push a little bit harder on certain guys? Like there's a guy that I wasn't familiar with until this week when I saw him reported by On3 that he's coming, but Sam Turner, who's from, an Atlanta kid who's committed to Georgia Tech. Yeah.
He's good.
So yeah, he's coming this weekend. Is that a thing where like, okay, we need to focus more on other options now since the Cunningham thing is looking less and less likely?
Well, yes to that, because you got to have other options besides one guy.
Yeah.
And you need numbers. You need 2 or 3 guys in every class. And I know they don't have a quarterback yet. We'll talk about that in a second. But you can't have the situations they had in prior years that got Auburn in the bad spot they were last year at receiver.
Mm-hmm.
They had too many misses. They didn't figure it out before the end of the class. And me looking up at the scoreboard against Bama and Auburn has 20 yards passing at halftime happens. That is a fact. I'll never forget that as long as I live. That should never be the case at any school, even a directional school.
Right.
So you have to recruit it better. And there's so many developing kids that are upside guys. Auburn's famous for that anyhow. My whole life, they've taken 3-star kids and beat the crap out of people. Why can't you do it again?
I mean, specifically, what are your thoughts on Sam Turner, the Georgia Tech wide receiver commit?
Speed, man.
I
was like, I'm surprised it's not ranked higher.
Yeah, same. I turned his stuff on earlier this week when I saw his name for the first time just to kind of learn about the kid. This guy's good. I would not have guessed he was a 3-star with looking at his tape.
Same way. I'm like, okay, he's running by guys in the Atlanta area and scoring.
Right. Yeah, it's not like he's in the middle of nowhere beating up on guys. He's in Atlanta. It's like that's a pretty competitive brand of football right there.
Yeah, Atlanta is a top 5 city nationally for high school football. End of story. So, and he's playing at a tradition-rich program. He's their guy. Georgia Tech is hoping the Auburns of the world go, we don't want him.
Yeah, they overlook him. It's like, yeah, he's the 52nd ranked player in Georgia. Don't worry about it. Don't look at him.
Georgia's so good, brother. It's such a good state for football. It's insane.
Yeah, so Sam Turner, I don't think he's going to pop or anything this weekend, but I do think that's a name we need to start paying attention to because, if Auburn wants to add multiple receivers, like they need a guy like him. They need a guy like him to come over to the class. So, thoughts on Chroma? It seems like Auburn is back in the driver's seat for him. Where are you with Chroma and his recruitment? The running back, could he be the number 2 running back to Alvin?
Well, 2 things there. Number 1, if I could only have one, I'll take Chroma.
Wow.
He's an animal.
Okay.
He plays at Lee County High School in Georgia. And for those of you who don't know, that's one of those schools where the order of things that go on in that community are football, then everything else. It matters. And he's been their guy since a sophomore. Mm-hmm. The guy that catches the ball, runs the ball, whatever. Everybody wants him, and he's just devoted to his craft. But he's a difficult kid to pin down. Georgia's wanted him really bad. And how often did they miss on like an in-state running back?
But doesn't Georgia have like multiple backs?
Well, they got one kid committed that's a smaller kid from Cedar Grove, another Atlanta kid, but he's not as good as Chroma. And Chroma's an every down, 210-pound, I'm going to beat you in the head, 1985 SEC running back.
Yeah. No,
but he can catch.
I love it. Right.
So there's been a lot of battle between Florida State and Auburn on which place he was going this weekend. I don't care who says he's going where. I want to see where he shows up.
Good point.
Because Florida State wants him really bad too, and he's buddies with Cam Davis, who just signed with Florida State.
Oh, interesting.
So that's going to be a war. Chroma's hard to pin down. Like I've interviewed him multiple times. He's real open-minded. He didn't even follow football as a younger kid. Didn't have like a favorite college. Yeah. He just happened to be really good at it. Mm-hmm. So great kid though, academics, all that. So he would fit Auburn to a T socially though. Super chill guy, laid back. He fits Auburn great.
Yeah, yeah. I'm expecting multiple guys to commit from the 25 class and the 26. I'm counting the scheduled commitments within next week as well in that. But I think we get 1 or 2 guys in the 2026 class this weekend as well, Brian.
Hezekiah Harris could be a kid. That's somebody that's not out of the
Haven't we said that though for like months at this point?
I know, but here's another example though. He's with a bunch of people. He might need somebody to pull. He's a pretty quiet young man. He might need somebody to pull him along. but he's got offers from everybody. He might want to enjoy it a while, which is totally fine. I'm down with that. Committing now is not for a 26 kid a huge deal, but like I did an article on him today at Auburn Daily, like there's nothing not to like about him. He's the 26 version of Jared Smith. He's 6'5", 235. He could run like a deer.
Yeah, we take that. Yeah, 100%.
That's
100%.
This is not a difficult evaluation. So
no, yeah,
he has an offer from everybody. So
I talked about this on yesterday's show, but it seems like Auburn's in it for a lot of edge defenders. And there's been a comment or two that I've seen pretty consistently where it's like, we're in it for too many edge guys. We don't need too many edge guys. And to that, and I think you'll agree, is like, there's no such thing as too many edge rushers.
Don't do that. Don't make me angry, Zach. You won't like me when I'm angry.
No, I brought that up specifically to make you angry. So yeah, but no, you agree. Get all the edge, especially guys like that can potentially beef up and play defensive end as well on third and long. Like you can't have too many of those guys. You just can't.
No, it takes more calories and energy to play defense because you're chasing guys. You got to rotate more. If you don't have a third string defensive end that's at least playable at the back end of your schedule as an Auburn, a Georgia, LSU, it's going to suck in November for you.
Yeah. That's a good point. That's a good point. All right. Yeah, we haven't really mentioned a quarterback this weekend. Is that a problem? That's coming up right here on Locked On Auburn. It's been a wild ride when it comes to quarterback recruiting for the 2025 class, Brian. The Juju saga appears to be done, at least from Auburn's point of view. It seems like both sides have kind of moved on. And so now you're looking at, okay, KJ Lacey, well, he's not reportedly coming this weekend. We've heard some Deuce Knight here and there. I don't know. We'll see. But as of now, there's been no site that follows Auburn that's reported that a quarterback is coming this weekend. On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being really bad, how big of a deal is this for Auburn?
I'll go 5.
Okay.
Because you can still flip kids in general. And number 2, if you don't get a quarterback in this era, it's not as bad as it used to be because of the portal.
Sure.
But at the same time, the goal is obviously to get a good quarterback every year. Now it just puts the onus on development. And whoever your 26 quarterback is, what? That's got to be lights out. That's not debatable. That's lights out. So my only question is, are they still going to, like, I don't think they're going to get the 2 kids you just mentioned. I could be completely wrong, but I will be shocked. Is there anybody else they're interested in? Like, they're going to scout other kids, obviously, but scouting and ardently recruiting are not the same. I don't know where they're going with this. So, and there's a bunch of kids in 26 already that are committed. Like, it's filling up quick.
Right.
They got to have some movement on that class as well. It's fascinating, but I hope to learn something, honestly, this weekend from Big Cat about that from talking to people around Auburn. There's got to be another guy on the we don't know about yet. There has to be. Yeah,
right. I mean, like you said, there has to be. And it's been a dead period. So I mean, there's no telling who they've been able to like talk to and scout and things like that. So and maybe there'll be a surprise visitor this weekend. I mean, who knows? But it's you still have to add somebody, right? Or is what's better in your mind right now? Going out and getting a 3-star guy that's like going to be a project, but like could work out, or it's a placeholder for this class, or not getting a guy from high school and just adding a transfer portal quarterback in December. What do you think is a better option? Let's assume those are the 2 options for Auburn. Obviously, there's more options there, but if those are the 2, which one are you picking?
If they're taking a portal guy in December, I could be wrong. But to me, that means that's big man football recruiting because they're not just going to take a guy. I mean, obviously you have Hank on, but like they got guys that aren't terrible. They're coming to the wings. They're going to know the offense stone cold going into next spring.
Right.
So if they take a portal guy, it's going to be really good. So I'm going to take the portal guy and then think they hit on a 26 kid. That's just my opinion.
Yeah. And there's just so many factors that come into play when you talk about the portal, because like the value of getting a guy from the high school ranks is like, okay, you've invested all this time into Hank or Walker or Holden, I guess, technically. And it's like, okay, well, one of these guys is going to be ready. And then by the time they're done, the guy that you're about to bring in the 25 class will be ready to go in a year or 2. And it just kind of throws the timing off if you go out and get a transfer guy, unless you get a guy who's like a redshirt freshman or a true sophomore that's going to agree to transfer and sit for another year or two, which I have a hard time thinking that that's out there, but maybe it could be. It's just it just throws the timing off a little bit, which may not even be a thing now because the transfer portal makes things so fluid in general, but it's still kind of an interesting exercise to think through.
Yeah, it's complex. The portal makes it completely different. Used to be if you didn't get a quarterback, you were just, chances are we're taking 2 next year, boys.
Yeah.
Then whoever made it stayed, and the one that didn't transfer, that was it.
Mm-hmm.
It was ironclad. Now, because of the portal and instant ability to play,
right,
it's just wild. You got to worry about, well, we don't want to lose Walker. He's our future. So we probably take a 1-year guy. But if you get a phone call from somebody that's got 2 years eligibility and he's already proven, I mean, these are tough questions, man. They're not easy. They're not.
It's wild. It's wild. Brian, how can people check out everything that you've got going on?
AuburnDaily.com and at FBScout_Florida on X.
Yeah, find all my written work at auburndaily.com as well. Like the video, subscribe. We'll see you tomorrow. This has been Locked On Auburn.